I think everything it takes to become a professional athlete, all those same rules apply to creating a business.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Art of Awesome. I am your host, Nick Troutman, and this is the show where we look for that secret sauce to success and the difference between the average and the awesome. Today is Monday, so that means we have another incredible interview with a fantastic guest. And if you guys are familiar with the show, you know that every Monday we do these deep dive interviews, and Fridays we've got our more bite-sized, shorter pieces of content. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, please go ahead and do so that you guys stay up to date and in tune with the latest episodes. But let's go ahead and jump right into it, as today's guest was just an amazing individual, and we had a phenomenal conversation. Today, I got to talk with Mikey Taylor. Mikey Taylor is actually a professional skateboarder. He's competed in the X Games. He's been an entrepreneur for most of his life, actually, which he talks about, and very, very interesting. He started a beer company while he was still a professional skateboarder. He also started his own skate company called Sovereign Skate Company. And now, since ending his professional skateboarding career, he has started his own investing fund, Commune Capital, which invests in real estate and, more importantly, multifamily real estate. And so Mikey Taylor is a very, impressive individual is maybe the right way to explain it. He's got a really cool, interesting story. We dive deep into kind of how he got into all of these investments, where he learned his financial literacy. We talk a lot about financial literacy and that it isn't just about a monetary value. It's about what you do with your money and how to get your money to work for you. So we dive deep into that, and I think you guys will get a lot of value and knowledge about financial literacy as a whole. We also, for the first time ever on The Art of Awesome, we actually kind of talk a little bit about religion, as Mikey explains kind of when he was lost after his skateboarding career ended, and kind of how he found himself a little bit, and he turned to God essentially to do that. So we haven't really talked much about that before on the show, but it's pretty interesting on especially Mikey's point of view on the whole thing. And anyway, I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. This is one of the most value-packed episodes that we have ever made for The Art of Awesome. So definitely stay tuned. I think you guys are going to get more than your money's worth, being that the episode's free. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into it here with Mikey Taylor. So first off, Mikey Taylor, thank you so very much for joining us here on The Art of Awesome, and just stoked to have you.
Dude, stoked to be here. Thanks, brother.
Cool. So you are a professional skateboarder. You've competed in the X Games. You've got like a 20-year history with that. You've also, very active entrepreneur, co-founder of St. Archer Beer Company. You helped start Villager Coconut Water Drink Company, Sovereign Skate Company. And now you've turned to real estate investing, and you've started your own fund with Commune Capital. So first off, this is just an incredible story, and I've got like a lot of questions I could dive into, but I'd love to hear just kind of how this all started from your words, like your point of view. Like, how did you get into all of this stuff?
Like, how did I get in from, going from skateboarder into wanting to start companies, and then that list of companies?
Yeah. Were you always so entrepreneurial, or like, I don't know.
Okay. So, the answer is yes. I just didn't know that I was. And truthfully, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was until after I had started my first company. And basically, going back to the beginning when I got sponsored as a pro skateboarder, I think there were a lot of signs that I was drawn towards entrepreneurship. I just didn't see it. And this would be the example I'd give. When I was 16, my parents pushed me to get a job. It was like, hey, you're old enough now, you need to go to work. And I didn't want to work yet, right? So my way to not work was to try to basically convince companies to give me free product. And then with that free product, I would have everything I would need to use. And then the money that I needed to survive, I would sell product to, kids who needed, skate stuff at discount. And so that was my first, okay, this is what I need. How do I figure it out? I'll go do it. And I think that was like an early sign. And then as I kind of moved into the skateboard industry, I was always really fascinated with how the business side of it worked. Like I loved, and I experienced it when I got my first shoe. I loved how like you had to figure out an idea of what you wanted your shoe to be designed like. You had to go through the whole process of creating the shoe. Then you had to figure out how to sell that shoe and make this shoe different than that shoe. I loved that whole cycle. So that's when I kind of realized that I think I was built to be an entrepreneur. But yeah, I saw early signs of it when I was young.
That's awesome. Do you think that, because I've got a similar kind of concept and idea behind it, as well as like being an athlete myself. And I see this with other athletes where, it's almost that drive to avoid the 9 to 5 where you're like, I'm going to figure out a way to get paid to do what I love to do. Do you think that entrepreneurial or entrepreneurialism, or however you want to say that, is, something that more professional athletes have? Or is that just, there's just a few of us kind of mixed in there that are more interested in like figuring out how to make it work financially?
That's such a good question. I actually think most people are built to be entrepreneurs, whether they realize it or not, or whether they become one. I think most of us have, the traits inside of us of trying to solve problems, trying to, highlight certain things that make it better than others. I think there's a component of that, but with athletes specifically, I think everything it takes to become a professional athlete, all those same rules apply to creating a business. And
Right.
so I'm a big believer in, yes, if you put in the work and learn the resilience and discipline and really the obsession factor of mastering something, if you can apply all of those into creating a company, you're going to succeed at it. So I think yes, but now the challenge becomes it all comes down to our wants, right? What do we want? Like you just kind of touched on something like, how do we make our passion a career? How do you avoid the 9 to 5? Well, for a lot of people, their want is security. They don't want to worry about having to create a business to make money. They don't want all the pressure of managing people. They just want to go to work, get their paycheck, and not worry about that. So I think it really comes down to what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day.
Right.
But for an athlete who wants to be an entrepreneur, yeah, I think you have a leg up on some people only because you've already gone through a lot of the, challenges that it takes to become a professional. That other people have to find that type of struggle once they create their first business.
Yeah, there's a word in there that you touched on that I definitely relate with, and I think is something that applies both to, professional athletes as well as any sort of, entrepreneurial or business person, and that is obsession. When you have that obsession for anything, I feel like you're almost guaranteed success, because the obsession will continue to drive you until you reach success. And that's at least how I felt with kayaking. I remember like as a kid being like, oh, I want to be a world champion kayaker. And it was like, I had been told by a lot of people like, no, don't do this, go to college, like stop chasing that dream, like go do this, the other thing. And I just kept thinking like, no, like that's like all I'm thinking about, all I'm dreaming about. Like, that's it. Like there is no like plan B in that regard.
Yeah, that's totally right. I think it's two things, right? You have to have obsession because you need to apply more action than those around you, right? Obsession is how you do that. Two, it's the resilience component as well, because with athletes, typically you learn in the beginning that as long as you don't stop, you will succeed. It just, the factor becomes time, right?
Right.
So you apply those two things, obsession and resilience, then you will succeed. Without a doubt, failure is not the option because we're taught never to stop.
Right.
No,
No,
so I agree with you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've said it many times before, but you're exactly right that essentially you cannot fail as long as you don't give up, right? And
That's right.
Anyways, so for anybody out there, whether you want to be an athlete, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a business person, I mean, as long as you just never give up, you are guaranteed success.
That's right.
So another thing that I was curious about, you've been a skateboarder, pro skateboarder for more than 20 decades. So 2 decades, 20 years. That's obviously a big part of who you are. How did you deal with, or are you currently dealing with, like an identity shift between professional skateboarder, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and I guess what identity do you currently relate most to?
That's such a good question. And I think every athlete, specifically pro athletes, uh, are challenged by this, right? Yeah, like I was a pro skateboarder for almost 20 years and I skated before. I've been skating 26 years of my life, right? Like that's the majority of my life spent on a skateboard. So,
Right.
yes, that was my identity. When my career ended, that was the biggest challenge that I faced of, if you don't know your identity and you don't know your purpose, who are you and why are you here? You cannot live on this earth the way you were created to live, right? Like use like a cup, for example. A cup's purpose is to hold, let's say, water, right? Without knowing what its purpose is, you can't judge if the cup is doing the purpose it was created for or not, right? If the cup holds water, it's living its purpose. If the cup doesn't hold water, it's not. But without knowing what it is that you're supposed to do, you can't gauge if you're doing well or not. So for me, it was like my career ends. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I was completely lost. That was by far the biggest challenge for me. I knew I had skills from being a pro skateboarder. I had already started 4 or 5 companies as a pro skateboarder. I knew I had a talent that would, resonate or I could rely on after skateboarding to succeed, right? None of that mattered because I didn't even know where to apply my skills. I was stuck at basically the first floor again. And so, yes, I had to find out what my identity was. And basically what happened to me is I realized that I put my identity and my purpose in something that could be taken from me. I was a skater. I was a pro skateboarder. This is why I'm here. Once I'm no longer a pro skateboarder, well, what is the point? Right. And in that, like trying to find out, like, who am I really? Why am I here on this planet? I know I've been put on this planet for a bigger reason than just skateboarding, right? I have my whole life to live. So there has to be a purpose that's meant from start to finish. And I didn't want to feel that experience or that feeling again, where I thought I was something and then that was gone. Like I didn't want to feel lost again. And so for me in that journey, it actually brought me really closer in my faith, because when I had to answer the question, who am I here? Who am I and why am I here? I looked at basically God. God, why did you create me? Why did you give me this talent? Why did you give me these skills? Who am I supposed to be? And so I started putting all of my faith in him instead of the thing I was doing. And then once I went into the next career, which was now, starting my newest company, my identity is not in my company. My identity is not entrepreneur. My identity is not real estate investor. These are just the things I'm doing to essentially, glorify God and the skills he gave me. So I live every day of my life, whether it's my relationship with my wife, my kids, my friends, my business, this interview, I want to lead by example in everything that I do. And that was kind of my transformation, was like, I can't do this on my own. And I need to figure out a way to succeed in my life for the rest of my life, not just a moment in my life. And that's where I landed.
Wow. That's very interesting and amazing. And I love how you were lost. You turned to faith, turned to God, and essentially looking for the answers, which I think probably a lot of people out there have done. A lot of people have probably been lost at some point and been like, God, what am I here for type thing.
Yeah.
But I love how too, that the answer wasn't, I'm here to be a real estate investor. Like that's not it. You're like, no, I don't want to become something else that can be taken away from me. And so I guess, would you clarify that, like, what you're currently identified as? Is that just like someone to like help other people, or like what is that identity now in a sense that can't be taken from you?
Oh, my identity which I would define as who am I? I am, I would say, first, God's child, second, husband, third, father, fourth, friend would be my priority list, right? First can never be taken from me. In reality, the rest of them can change, right? And then, going to my purpose, I would define my purpose. Why am I here? I'm here to glorify God and use all the talents that he gave me to live the life that he envisioned for me to live. It is where I landed on identity, purpose. And then I guess you could take it a step further and go, what's your destiny, right? Who am I? Why am I here? Where do I go after this? And so those were the three questions that I felt I had to answer. And without an answer to those questions, I couldn't live a successful life.
Wow. That's amazing. We've gone deep right off the bat.
That's right. That's right.
This is super cool. Well, okay, so something else that I wanted to tap into is on your social media, you talk a lot about financial literacy. It's definitely something that I see as a big thing that you explain a lot of interviews, a lot of just videos and explanations behind the whole thing. Would you agree that there is a lack of financial literacy within our education and school systems? And what do you think is the best way, if you do agree with that we could go about trying to fix that maybe?
I guess the first answer would be yes. I think there's a massive problem in our education system. I think the majority of us are not financially literate. And I think if we were, I wouldn't be able to do the things I'm doing. Right. The stuff that I'm posting, nobody would respond to if everybody was a master at it, right? And so I think for me, it was eye-opening to see how many people were financially illiterate. And what's fascinating is that doesn't mean you don't make money, and that doesn't mean you don't make a lot of money. That was when I stopped skateboarding, when I started this new company, I kind of just assumed, like, dude, you're making $500,000 a year, you're making $3 million a year, you know about money. Not the case. I've met so many people that make over $1 million a year that have no clue how money works. Not at all. They make money and spend money. Same challenge that you'd have with somebody who maybe makes $50,000 a year. That was the fascinating part for me. So how do you change it? I think there's two options. It's either the education system has some type of reform or changes the way in which they teach or the principles that they're teaching, or the alternative outlet just becomes bigger. There's more and more people that are creating valuable content to teach through some type of online learning.
Wow. And when you're talking about these people that that maybe make, over $1 million a year, which a lot of people would think like they are extremely successful financially, but they're still maybe, as you would state, financially illiterate. Are we talking in the sense that they don't know how to reinvest that money, how to grow that wealth or create wealth instead of riches? Like, is that kind of what you're talking about there?
It's a handful of things. The first thing I would say, and this is on like the kind of the beginning challenge for everyone, is spending less than you make, right? Everybody knows that. Spend less than you make. And we assume that as we make more money, that makes it easier for us to save, right? Human behavior says that's not true. What we end up doing is making more money and spending more money. So right. Now you have people that, let's say, make $50,000 a year that don't have any savings. And now you have people that make $750,000 a year that have no savings, right? So the amount you make doesn't matter. The first challenge is hard for everybody. So there's more and more people that I meet that make a ton of money that have zero retirement, $0 invested. They're not taking advantage of the amount of money they're making to put themselves in a better position. That would be first, right? So money management is off. Then you start moving into the realm that you kind of refer to. How do you get money to work? How do you put money in motion? They don't understand that one either. And so the challenge you have is there's two ways to succeed financially. You educate yourself and then apply action on what you know, or you hire the education, right? One or the other. Most people don't do either. So that's what I mean by most people are financially illiterate. they're at the same stage, regardless if they make money or not.
That's super cool. And I guess that's in part probably why you've got, I mean, a huge social following. I mean, maybe that's also because you've been a pro skateboarder for 20 years, but I think it's just amazing how you really break it down and simplify it on your social channels and really explain a lot of the financial literacy that I think everybody should know and everybody should learn, but like we're saying, isn't necessarily taught in our current education system anyway.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Am I correct? Did you go to college or not?
No, I graduated high school straight into pro skateboarding.
So, wow. Where did you learn your financial literacy, I guess?
I had a mentor. He was more than a mentor, but basically when I told my parents that I was going to be a pro skateboarder and not go to college, they panicked and were incredibly fearful of that. And my dad was like, hey, if you're going to do this, I want you to get help. Somebody has to help you financially. I was like, okay, cool. And he basically introduced me to the person that was helping him with his money. And he was a financial advisor. He ran an office that managed multiple families' money, right? Most financial advisors just manage your money. They'll manage your stocks and bonds. They might rebalance your portfolio. That's pretty much it. Mm-hmm. Thankfully for me, I met somebody who one of his principles was to empower and educate his clients. So from 18, he was teaching me all of the, fundamentals or the foundation of finance and how to succeed at it. And I think for me, because I didn't go to college, I was very fearful of what my life was going to look like after skateboarding. And I think that fear made me pay attention to the things he was telling me and holding on to them like they were truth. I mean, even in the beginning, like he would tell me things, for example, he'd start with spend less than you make, right? Then he moved into you need to live off the smallest percentage possible so that you have money to invest, right? Then he taught me about pay yourself first, all these principles. And I was just like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it out of desperation. I'll do anything, right? So I spent the first 10 years of my career living like I was broke. Wow. And then I hit challenges like I'm looking around, seeing all my friends buy like Mercedes and BMWs, right? So now the ego hits. Hey, I make more money than them, but people think they're more successful than me. I need a new car. I need new clothes. I need people to think I'm this, right? Then I had him to check me. Dude, your ego is getting in the way of your goal. Your goal is financial freedom. Don't let ego kill this goal, right? So it was like, okay, fine, I'll listen to you. I'll buy a car in cash that's worth $2,500. I'll get my expenses down. I'll manage my needs, right? And that really, really played a huge, that gave me a large blessing, or was the biggest blessing in my life, because once I got to the point of investing, the disciplines were already created when I was young. And I wouldn't have had any of that with him. I'd be like everybody else. No, I mean, nobody taught me in school. I would be spending everything I made scrambling to make more.
So do you think that the key then is to find maybe a mentor that is financially literate to help kind of explain the ways of finance and money and how it all works?
I think it goes back to the two options you have: educate yourself or hire the education, right? Those are our two options. For me, I kind of got a blend of both, right? I hired the education because he helped me, create my budget. He helped me put dollars into investments. He helped me create some type of, tax efficient plan, but he was also educating me at the same time. But I was in a position to hire it. The thing about it is you have to have money to pay for it. Right. So if you're not in that position yet, then you educate yourself, you apply action, you build yourself to that point. And now you have the choice to hire somebody or maintain the plan you're already on.
Have you read the book, The Richest Man of Babylon?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome
I assumed you had, but essentially the same thing. Like I would almost say for anybody out there who doesn't have their finances in order yet, that can hire maybe a financial advisor or something like that, go on Amazon for like $10 and buy The Richest Man of Babylon. You'll learn a lot of these, values through that. And then maybe just go to your social media channel and just follow. And there, or other people as well. But there are easy, or maybe not easier, there are cheaper ways to continue to learn, but you have to put the work in. and you actually have to open the book. You actually have to, find these mentors, whether they're on social media or what, and you still have to put that, your best foot forward to continue your learning.
That's totally right. I'm just gonna say something real quick. You don't have to be Warren Buffett. You don't have to be a master investor. It's the discipline that is the hardest part. I'm gonna take 20% out of my paycheck every single month. That's going to my savings and investing. That's the hard part. So yeah, starting with educating 100% and then create the disciplines and then just stay on track. You know what I'm saying? That's all it takes. I think discipline outperforms knowledge in this regard. I'm 80-20. I think it's massive.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, back to like what we were saying with people that I think on average, if you were to tell someone like, okay, you got this new job, you're now making $1 million a year. What are you going to do with all this money? Most people are probably going to be like, sweet, I'm going to buy like a Benz or like whatever. Maybe I'll buy this sweet house. Like, and depending on how you look at it, the house could be considered an asset, but it's more likely still considered a liability. If you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you'll kind of understand that a lot. But yeah, I think most people, when they get an influx of cash, their first thought is, well, what could I spend this all on? The first thought isn't, how could I invest this so that the money can make money for me in the future?
That's right. That's exactly right.
So you were an athlete, you've got this financial advisor kind of helping you along the way. Were you, while you were still skateboarding, obviously you had these other, entrepreneurial businesses. You had your beer company, your skate company, your coconut water company. Was real estate always a part of this, or did that come in later, like afterwards when you were kind of in that lost era? How did you get more into the real estate and starting Commune Capital?
Yeah. So real quick, the coconut water, which is Villager, I didn't start Villager. My partner in St. Archer started Villager, and I was an investor in it, just to clarify.
Okay.
But real estate was always part of my plan when it came to the assets I was investing in my portfolio. The thing that changed was I didn't realize that I was going to start business when I started investing as a pro skateboarder. It was just, how do I get my money to work? How do I invest in assets that will help my transition once my career ends? That was my whole goal. And then when I started St. Archer, that is when I realized I was going to create business. I was going to be an entrepreneur. I loved it, right? I thought I was going to stay in the product side though. After that was Sovereign. After that, I started a company with my friend called Avni. I thought I was going to stay in the realm of create brand, sell product. Commune, it happened in this moment of trying to figure out what I was going to do, right? Like talking about identity and purpose, right? I was sitting on the couch. I had surgery on my leg, so I couldn't even skate at this point either. So I'm sitting on the couch. I'm kind of depressed. I'm trying to figure out who I am. And I got a call from one of my friends who was another pro skateboarder. And he was like, dude, how are you? I haven't seen you in months. No one's heard from you. You went dark on your social media. Like, are you okay? And I was just like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm lost, big dog. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm struggling here. And he was like, that just went over his head. He was like, okay, cool. But like, no, are you okay? Like financially, like, you have your wife, you have 2 kids, you have your home. How are you paying the bills? And I remember saying to him like, oh, dude, yeah, financially, like I'm actually in an incredible spot. I'm financially free. I don't need to worry about these things. And he was like, are you kidding me? Then why are you sitting on the couch moping? You know what I'm saying? It was one of those ones.
Yeah.
And so I hang up the phone and I'm like, wow, I really feel like shit now. And I was like, okay, why do I feel this way? I felt basically isolated. It was almost like survivor's guilt. That's how I felt. Like, why am I one of 3 pro skateboarders that doesn't have to figure out how to survive the next day? And in that, I was like, you know what? Why am I in this position? And I went all the way back to my mentor, which was Randy, because I had somebody come into my life that not only educated me and taught me about money, but also showed me how to get money to work and then allowed me to invest in opportunity that he managed. They managed real estate funds. So my first real estate experience was through them. And so as I'm thinking about why I'm in this position, I was like, you know what? How can I put more and more of my friends in this position and not in the normal outcome, which is survival mode? what the heck do I do? How do I make money? Call sponsors that want to sponsor me. Can I get a job, et cetera, et cetera. And that was when I went, you know what? I need to start a company to solve this problem. And so I started creating the business plan, and I knew I wanted to educate and have some type of opportunity. It took a few months for me to realize that I wanted the opportunity to be in real estate. And then I had to fine tune what the education meant. And then through that kind of process of creating the business plan, Commune was built. So what's interesting is I didn't think I would ever be in the private equity world. That seemed like a world that I didn't know I could even be allowed to get into. And then the interesting thing is I'm sitting in a hybrid of both worlds now. I have a business because we have to have our business that manages the investment, and that business has to make money, and we have employees and we have to manage that whole side. Then we have investments. We have to get dollars of our investors out into investments. So it's a very kind of hybrid of the two, which I really enjoy because I was always fascinated with investing. I was always interested in how money worked. And now I get to experience both sides of it, having the business, creating the business, building the business, and then getting money into motion.
That's amazing. I love it. How many of your investors that you guys have with Commune, how many of them are like pro skateboarders or from the skateboard world that have kind of seen what you've done and decided to invest with you versus like, I don't know, kind of the everyday Joe that maybe just follows you and wants to invest with you?
Not enough, unfortunately. Yet, I would say yet. Out of our skaters, pro skaters who are investors, I think we have 10. Okay. Pro athletes in total, we might be a little bit higher, but we're over 400 investors, and most of them are, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, we have a lot of people in sales, but yeah, most of them are on the conventional kind of career path. Not enough athletes, at least for the purpose that I'm trying to create. But there's a lot to that. Like with skateboarding, most skateboarders don't make that much money. And with our current offerings, you have to be an accredited investor, which basically doesn't allow, I think, the majority of skaters who would want to invest with us, the ability to invest. So that part sucks. That's something we're working on. As far as creating a new offering where the minimum is much lower and that requirement goes away. And I'm hoping to have that up, mid to end of 2021.
Awesome. And that was actually going to be my next question, but can you just explain to the listeners that maybe don't already know the difference between accredited investor and non-accredited?
Yeah. So, what the SEC does is puts requirements on who can invest with you and who can't. And for whatever reason, this is what they said. If you're an individual, you have to make $200,000 a year for 2 years with the expectation that you're going to continue to make that moving forward. Or if you're married or have a partner, you need to make $300,000 a year joint, or you have to have a net worth of $1 million or more, not including your primary residence. Those are kind of the three major requirements. And then they just added to it this year, where if you have any of your series license, your Series 6 or Series 7, which means you're in the financial world and have those licenses, they'll allow you to be an accredited investor as well. Gotcha. So the thing that sucks, and it goes back to what we first talked about, because you make $200,000 a year does not mean you know about money. What the SEC is trying to basically stop is you taking advantage of people who don't make a lot of money and putting dollars into investments that aren't best for them. That's what they're trying to avoid. They picked a dollar amount to say that's where the financial literacy should be. And I think that's an example that just shows that we're off here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully maybe in 2021, we can get you back on the podcast and we talk about your non-accredited offering. What do you think is the best advice that you would give to either an athlete that's in the midst of their career or even an athlete that's just, young and starting, for how that they can kind of set up the future, being that we know that, as an athlete, your career will eventually have an end. And most athletes don't really think about that until it's kind of winding down towards the end. But what advice would you give to someone who's still kind of in the peak of their career of how they could set themselves up to be more financially stable or have financial freedom afterwards?
Okay. So whenever I tell athletes your career is going to end and you have to plan for it, that doesn't do it for them. I think it's so scary that a lot of athletes just kind of out of sight, out of mind, because they don't want to be overwhelmed with that emotion of like, oh my gosh, it's going to end.
Right.
So what I started saying is you're in a moment to not prepare, but plan and build the next thing to be even larger than the first, right? This is all you taking advantage of all the opportunity that's given to you right now. It has kind of been how I'm starting to communicate it. And
Right.
basically what that means is when you're in your career, you start moving up in an upward trajectory very fast. And it's very hard to see where the peak is. So in that time of building your career, you want to be focusing on how to take all of this momentum and position yourself to capitalize it and then move on to the next thing. So I think one, it's creating the discipline when it comes to your finance, having cash set aside, not only for an emergency fund, but having opportunity cash to take advantage of the opportunity that comes your way as a pro athlete, right? We as athletes have doors that are open for us that we only have because we're pro athletes. Take advantage of those, right? The other thing too is it's lifestyle inflation is a big one for athletes, man. We make more money, we spend more money. We're competitive by nature. And so be really mindful of keeping your lifestyle set at one bar and not raising it as you make more money, and look at all that spread or all of that margin. That's firepower towards your future. So all of that money is going to go into savings and investing. It's all about adding kind of a team behind you to succeed after your career. And then like anything, man, the earlier you start, the better. With investing, that's like really, really a factor because of something called compound interest.
Yep.
More time you give it, more powerful it becomes. So really focusing on that. And I think the last thing too is for athletes, we are all hit with the emotional challenge of life after our sport, all of us. Whether you want to recognize it or not, it's going to be hard for you. So having cash is actually really important for an athlete because you're going to need some type of cushion to help you transition. And then having money in investments that produce income is going to help you as well, because now you have money coming in that you're not working for. But it is a blend between the two because, you know, based on your career and how much you make, like kayaking or skateboarding, we're not making basketball money. We're not making $1 million a year. So for us to be able to invest enough dollars into enough assets that actually make it so that we're financially free, we usually don't have enough time for that. But what we can do is build a foundation, have money start coming in, have cash sitting on the side to help us transition, and then maintain our plan as we move into our second career.
Yeah, no, I like how there's a lot of things that you said there. And one, I totally agree that I agree with all of them, but that cushion needs to be built because there's nothing worse than losing your sponsors, losing events, losing all this stuff that you do, and losing that identity. So like what you said, when you had that identity, loss and you're feeling just lost, who am I? What do I do with my life now? It would be compounded in a negative effect if you also had no income, no financial cushion, and you're like, damn, not only did I lose all that stuff, but now I've got no income to feed my family.
That's so right. I'm going to add to that because it's really powerful. When you go into survival mode, you don't have the luxury to work through some of this emotional stuff. You're focusing on how do I eat and how do I put shelter over my head, right? That's all you care about. And so if you don't have everything planned for it, you're going to look at this moment in your career ending as the worst thing that ever happened to you, right?
Right. Yeah.
But actually, it's a huge blessing, believe it or not. I know that sounds crazy, but what I experienced was my career ends. It was the worst thing I ever felt. Having to move through that time created this so many new values and just like improve so much more of my resilience and discipline. Then I found identity and purpose. And I will now look back at that moment as one of the biggest blessings that ever happened in my life, because it created all of this. And if I wasn't planning for it and it would have just hit me in the face and I would have had to go into survival mode, I wouldn't have been able to experience this. I would have spent the rest of my life talking about that moment that I was a pro skateboarder and the career ending being, my industry screwed me. This is the worst thing that ever happened to me, and just hung on to the bitterness of it, and you don't want that. That's not going to create a happy, healthy, successful person.
Right. And I mean, it's not going to set you up either in a way that when you have that negative, I don't know, cloud over your head, it's hard to move on to the next step without dragging that negativity with you. And if you keep dragging that negativity around it, I mean, it's only less likely that you're going to get back on that success path.
That's right.
So, Mikey, what's your next, you talked about destiny earlier on. What's your next 3 to 5 years from here? Where do you see your future going, or where is that destiny, that vision that you have for yourself?
Okay. I would say there's two parts of it. One, we have the next 5 years of our business. And our goal from I would say a monetary standpoint, or being able to gauge the success of the actual business. We have a goal to manage $1 billion in the next 5 years. That's kind of our target goal. Wow. And then I would say from a purpose standpoint, the more and more people that we're able to assist in becoming financially literate and then financially free, the better. So I would say that's kind of on the business front. For me personally, in this moment of COVID, it really brought the priority into both my wife and my, I would say on our forefront of what's important is teaching our kids to be leaders, taking more and more responsibility to actually build them up instead of allowing the school to do it, allowing other people to create successful kids to become successful adults. That's I think our next priority for the next 5 years is building leaders.
I love that. I've never had it simplified or explained that way. As I've got 2 kids myself, and I think you've got 3 if I'm correct.
Yeah.
But the idea that instead of parenting them or trying to encourage them, it's no, I want to build a leader. I love how you eloquently put that. And that's totally what I think every parent wants out of their children, is to build leaders, to teach their kids how to live their own life and their own version of it. That's amazing. Mikey, you've got just an amazing future set ahead of you. You've got an amazing past behind you. I love everything that you're doing. I love also that not only have you created financial freedom and security for yourself, and that you're continuing to build it for others, but that you are giving back by sharing that knowledge, because shared knowledge can be just so powerful. So I think it's just amazing with everything you're doing on your social media and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to move us quickly on to the next part of our show that we call the fire round. And I'm just going to fire a couple of these questions at you, Mikey. Do you have a favorite quote that you live by?
Oh, I don't have a favorite quote that I live by, but my favorite quote at the moment is so silly. If you're a real estate investor and you're paying taxes, you're doing real estate wrong. That's that's the highlight for us right now. It has nothing to do with life, but that's the one that's hot in my mind.
That's interesting. I love it. What would be one lesson that you may have learned recently, whether it's through recent success or mistake?
I would say the biggest lesson I've learned recently is you will always have problems, and you will always have to find solutions to problems, no matter how much money you make. That is a theme that we all face as people. So more success does not mean less problems. It's actually the opposite.
I like that. And I think that's regularly misinterpreted, where people just think if I just had more money, I wouldn't have any worries. You know what I mean? And it's well, I don't think that's actually the case.
That's right.
Yeah. You might have different worries, but it's not going to eliminate them altogether.
That's right. That's right.
Do you have a favorite book or current book that you're reading, or even just anything that maybe you've listened to that's kind of inspired you along the way?
Yes, on all of them. My favorite book in the last few years would probably be Principles by Ray Dalio. Really enjoyed that book. From a at least the financial or entrepreneurial realm, I think Rich Dad Poor Dad was probably a big one for me, just because that was like the gateway drug in a sense of,
Yeah.
oh, I'm looking at all of this wrong.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that book. I would say for me, the biggest book that's, at least from the biggest book that plays the biggest influence in my life is probably the Bible. I chose to read that in 2017, start to finish. And that probably played a bigger role than anything I've read. Even monetarily, money management is all over that thing. So
it is interesting how much money is spoken about in the Bible, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no question. If you could go back in time to any time within your life and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
For me personally, it would be, don't worry about what other people think of you. Only focus on doing the right thing, regardless if people are going to like it or not.
I love that. I 100% agree with that. And I think that's something that I've definitely struggled with more in the past, for sure. And a lesson that I have, I guess, learned myself and regularly try to remind myself, because I think it's something, especially with social media nowadays, that we all kind of just easily fall into this trap of worrying about what other people think.
Yeah, that's right. Especially for athletes too.
Yeah.
Like, we get used to being praised, right? That was the thing for me. Loved, like, dude, I felt good about myself when people praised me.
Right.
And then it was like, I started noticing that I was so concerned with people liking who I was, that I was no longer being myself. I was just trying to be the person that I thought they liked. And you can't be happy that way. There's no substance in your life if that's the case.
Yeah. Very interesting. If you were to leave this earth today, and everything that you've done, so all the videos that you've shot, the titles that you've won, all the investments that you've bought, everything was gone. And all you were left was a piece of paper and a pen, and you could leave 3 truths. What would those 3 truths be?
Oh, man. Can't bring anything with us. I would say I would go down to, I would start at the identity, purpose, and destiny. Don't live your life unless you can answer, who am I? Why am I here? And where do I go after this? Those are the first 3 things you have to answer in your life.
That is incredible. And probably one of the more simply put ways that someone has answered that question. So thank you very much for that, Mikey. This has just been honestly one of my most favorite interviews so far. I have learned a ton. I hope that all of my listeners have as well. For anybody out here listening that wants to connect with you, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you?
Any social media, my handle is just at Mikey Taylor. You can go to my Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and find a way to connect with me. I have my number on there. You can email me, etc. If you're interested in our company, all the handles are at Commune Capital, and our website is communecapital.com. Hit me up. I'll find a way to reach out to you for sure.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And being generous to connect with everybody. Final thing is, I always try to add value in these interviews as much as that I can. So is there something that you're focusing on right now that maybe I could help you with, or possibly my listeners could help you with?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I would say, from your listener standpoint, I would say the biggest value that can be added to me is, I would say, letting me know where you're at on your financial journey, things you're succeeding at, things that you're challenged by. The more and more people that I know what level they're at or what their challenges are, the easier it is for me to create content to add value to them. So feedback is huge. Oh man, for you, I think it'd be feedback as well.
Awesome.
I think feedback is a big one.
I will definitely, once we're offline, we can talk all about that, but I've definitely been a huge consumer of your content, and I love what you're getting out there, preaching to the world, just explaining, and the knowledge that's been given. So thank you for that. And I will definitely connect with you more when we're offline as well. Final question of the day for you, Mikey. What is your definition of awesome?
My definition of awesome would be living the life that you were meant to live at the highest form possible.
I love that. That is amazing. Thank you so very much for speaking with us today. This has been, again, truly incredible. As I said earlier, I have learned a ton from this. I've got a ton of value from it. I hope all of my listeners did. If you guys out there listening did get value, please, if you could share this out with someone, share it with one person so that they could help get maybe a little bit more financially literate, maybe help them get set up better in the future financially, or just if this is just an amazing conversation that you want to share, please share that out with either a friend, family member, or throw it up on your social media, as I would greatly appreciate it, and it'll just help us build our community and collective as a whole. Thank you all for listening, and please, for everybody out there, go check out Mikey on his social platforms at Mikey Taylor. There's tons of knowledge beyond just what we spoke about today, and some incredible skateboarding too, so check him out there. I'm Nick Troutman, signing off, wishing you all an awesome day. Cheers.